You can intro for a change.
I'll do intro. I think it's my first intro. So, welcome guys. This is Plugged In, the second or third episode of Plugged In.
Switched on. Second switched on.
Oof, I'm not very switched on. I'm forgetting the name. Second episode is Switched On. We're talking about Life is Strange, and I think everyone in Gameplug pretty much has played it. But Jamie and I are its biggest fans, so we thought we were probably the best to talk about it. We really love this game, and it stuck with us more than pretty well any other game that I've played. Even though it's pretty simple and it's fairly short. So, why do you think it stuck with us that much? Why do you think it stuck with you?
I think the turnaround of story versus pace was always an issue with it. So episode 1, that was my qualm, but 2, 3, 4,
it was
and
a little
5,
hard to get into, but as soon as he sort of got a few minutes into episode 2, I was hooked.
Yeah, the pacing just works. I think that's what makes it utterly memorable. Because it's moving quickly enough for you to keep interest, and it's not bogged down in its puzzles or its routines. It's very linear.
Yeah.
But the actual writing of the story is what's given it. It's like the characterization of the main characters is phenomenal.
Yeah, definitely. And every episode ended on such a high and a cliffhanger. And just from episode 2 onwards, every episode just made me want to keep playing and play the next one. I'm glad that I played it all when all the episodes were released and not episode by episode, because it would have been really hard to wait in between episode 4 and 5. So yeah, I think that's the best way to play it, is just to play all of them at once, and then you can really you get sucked into it and you get hooked. And yeah, like you said, the characters are just amazing, and there's so much development for them each episode, and it is linear, but still your choices kind of shape the characters just enough to make it feel unique to you.
Yeah, they still matter inherently, and it doesn't matter that you can keep different people alive. You can keep essentially main characters can die and never return to the story. So that kind of telltale episodic, your decisions matter thing is still very prevalent. But the two main characters, Max and Chloe, their relationship for me was that's what the whole thing was about. Now I remember speaking with Dan, who sadly can't be here as he lives in Melbourne. He said that the thing for him was more about the actual happenings of going, the actual town.
Oh, okay.
It was the story of the people of the town that was drawing him in, and the way that he saw Max. Yeah, for me and for you, I think we both played it very similarly. Our focus was on Max and Chloe's relationship.
Definitely.
And that was my whole thing. I've spent this entire game trying to protect my best friend.
Yeah.
And there was no way that in the end I was going to let the comeuppance tear that apart. So
this is a spoiler cast, but just in case you haven't played it and you're still watching, which I don't know why you would, but the last episode, you have a choice to save Chloe, your best friend, or to save the town, and whoever you don't choose, they die. So Jamie and I both saved Chloe because, like you said, the whole game had been about Max and Chloe's friendship and saving your best friend, keeping her alive and giving her a happy life. So, I mean, it was a tough choice to let the town die, because, you do get invested in, Chloe's mum and all your school friends and stuff like that. But, yeah, when it came down to it, I could let the town die pretty easily, knowing that Chloe was safe and that she and Max were going to go off and, live a good life.
Yeah, that's the thing. There was nobody in there that I wanted to save that much.
There was no one that I wanted to save, enough to kind of
warrant even risking that you lose Chloe. Now, the consensus online and the consensus when speaking to people who pick the other ending is that is the far superior ending in terms of the narrative, which way it pushes. But I don't know. I like to think that Chloe and Max are out there, kicking tires somewhere.
I think so, yeah.
But they won't be back for season 2, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We're both hoping for a cameo appearance from them, but they're long gone apparently. Season 2 will take place allegedly in a similar environment, similar kind of art style, tone, but with completely new characters. I don't know if that'll capture the same magic. I'd like to see season 2 following those two around, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd love Max and Chloe back. I think they were just kind of some of the best characters in any game or book or movie or whatever that I've seen lately. And I think it will be hard for them to create new characters that I feel as connected to and I love so much. But if they can pull it off, then season 2, like I'm excited to see the same kind of game and the same kind of storytelling, just with a different setting.
And maybe a different power.
Yeah, that'd be good.
It doesn't have to be Rewind. Let's talk about the main villain of the story. Did you see that coming? Because I was genuinely surprised by it.
Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, I knew that there'd be kind of someone who you weren't expecting to be the villain. It wasn't, all Nathan Prescott. But I wasn't suspecting the professor. He was he seemed like a genuinely good guy, who was, made a few mistakes throughout the story.
If you go back to it and you play through maybe episode 1, 2 again, especially when Max is first in the classroom in episode 1 and she's doodling on the table and she figures out she's got her power, if you listen to some of the language that he actually uses about, beauty and perfection and like the innocence of youth and things like that, it actually all does point you actually, how the fuck did I not see this coming?
It's so creepy.
But it's so well, that goes back to the writing, and not just that, as we said, Max and Chloe is so well written, but the ensemble's well written as well. Yeah. I genuinely despise Nathan Prescott. I don't care that he ended up in the bottom of a barrel somewhere.
I did, in the sense that I think they did a good job of, he definitely wasn't innocent, he wasn't a good person, but he was, he was sick and his parents were jerks and he was like manipulated by the professor. And I mean, like, I hated him, but he could have been a much better person if, the events of the game had unfolded differently. So I kind of felt for him, but he's a jerk.
Yeah, big jerk, and that's what I mean. It was difficult even when you found out that he had sort of been a pawn that was being moved around by Jefferson. That, I still couldn't feel the sorriness for him. It was still very much that he was doing these things, and alright, it was at the behest of someone else, but I don't know, he just wasn't a nice person, and it's not someone, again, that I had enough investment in to think, I need to save the town so people like this can survive.
Yeah.
I thought that the love interest between Max and, what was he called?
Warren. Yeah.
That was underplayed. I think that was maybe something I'd like to see flushed out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because it was sort of like he just comes to her aid all the time, and she just sort of bats him away with a stick and carries on with her adventures with Chloe. And if they'd maybe explored a narrative string that maybe could have you go one of two ways. You can go with Warren and do something, or you can go with Chloe as intended. But I suppose that would have opened up the spider's web, in essence, that you'd have then been protecting him somehow rather than her, and it's not about their friendship anymore. As you said, the parents were well written as well. Chloe's parents, let me say parent, because her father is dead, even though you can go back and save him.
Oh, that part was hard. That was hard.
It was, and especially when you realise that by doing that you set off a chain reaction, that when you come back to the present day, Chloe's confined to a wheelchair, is dying pretty heavily, and then you get to do some euthanasia if you want to. Did you do euthanasia, or did you let her?
I helped her kill herself.
Yeah,
That thing though, that was one of the best parts of the game for me, and the best written parts, because when I first went back to the present and found out what had happened because of my actions, I was grappling with this, like, if the game gives me a choice, am I gonna keep this timeline or go back so Chloe's dad dies but Chloe's okay? And I was really conflicted. I was feeling like, who am I, or who is Max to like make this choice for Chloe? It's but then as soon as she said that she was dying, I was like, no, Dad's got to die, I'm going back, I'm doing this. And then from then on, there were no other choices that mattered that much in the game, but I was still more wary of using my powers. I didn't want to just use them like to rewind like a little mistake, because I was like, what if something else like that happens?
Yeah, and Max could be viewed one of two ways, and this is where I agree with what Dan was saying to us about the interpretation of Max actually is, as you the player, opens up which way you're going to view the story.
Yeah,
whether you view it, so like we view Max as someone who needed her best friend, had missed her best friend, she'd been away for years on end, come back, she was rekindling this relationship, and the focus became about that. Whereas for Dan, it was more he'd seen like the good that Max could do, and she'd always rise above to be the higher entity, essentially. Because situations where like you can take the gun from the guy that lives in the trailer home, I can't remember his name, Frank. Yeah, you can take the gun from him, and then you get the option to shoot him or just sort of scare him off. And I shot him, but then I remember Dan saying, he was like, no, because like she'd ultimately rise above. That's what he interpreted her as. Whereas for me, I definitely interpreted Max as someone who would do absolutely anything to protect
Exactly.
Chloe.
I did the same thing. I shot Frank because I was like, I didn't want to. I held off for a long time because I was kind of like Dan. I was like, I don't want to shoot a man. And then he like got serious about threatening Chloe. I was like, no,
I've got to do something to defend her. He was a very well written character as well. Actually, if it came to light that he wasn't just a menace pretty quickly when you break into his caravan and you're in there and you're searching around for his drug book and things like that, but you actually come across sort of like what's essentially a diary and pictures of him with the girl that the game actually makes us think is all about for so many episodes. I can't remember her. Kate? Rachel. No, Kate was the one that jumped off the building. Rachel, you're trying to find out what's going on with her, and it turns out they actually had a relationship and they cared about each other, and he was just as devastated by her disappearance as Chloe was, bringing him kind of full circle as not being that bad of a guy. But Rachel's the catalyst for what you're searching for, so everybody's trying to find out where this missing girl's gone. And when we got the comeuppance with that, I think that's one other element that could have been done a little better. It's kind of like you've been searching. I half expected us to find her alive.
I know, me too.
But I suppose not finding her alive was twisting the narrative to then go, someone is legit killing people. Yeah. And that's what opens that thread up. Chloe's relationship with her, obviously, for me, was something that Max was playing on a little bit, because she was like, well, she feels this way about her, like, but she's my best friend, like sort of jealousy.
I felt a little jealous about, Chloe and Rachel. I was like, but me, it's Max. I'm your best friend. And, I wanted to help her find her other, really good friend, and I did want to save this girl if I could, but I was always a little bit jealous for Max. Yeah,
I had a sort of a picture of the end, sort of mid-episode 3-ish, that the three girls would sort of ride off into the sunset, and I'd be like, we're getting the fuck out of this town. Which the end is we chose. Max and Chloe get to do that, but unfortunately Rachel's still being dug up in the what's it, a garbage,
it's like a
recycling place thing.
Yeah.
I can't remember what they call it in the game, but there's a lot of time spent in there as well, so that'd probably be a good thing to talk about in terms of the art style and the places we get to go. It feels like a living, breathing town. Like,
it does. Even though it's, you can't walk freely through it, it's like segmented. It's still, like, every place you go feels like it, it's an important part of Max's history and their friendship, because every part of the town is like, means something different to them, and they do something different in that area.
Yeah, it's very hicky without being hicky.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, they've got that whole, it's a very small, close-knit kind of, everyone knows each other neighborhoods.
It actually kind of reminded me of where I grew up. It was the same kind of like really small town, and everyone knew everyone else, and if you'd go into one of the cafes on the street, there'd be kind of like a Joyce and
people that you'd know by name.
Yeah, it actually was like my best friend's mum working at this cafe, so you'd go in to get lunch, and you'd say hi to her and talk about how school was going and stuff, and so things like that. I think that probably helped me to connect a bit to the game, because I could relate to Max and Chloe and the town. Yeah,
it felt incredibly wholesome, like, and that's what I think made me want to go back. Like yourself, I played episode 1 and 2 sort of as they happened, and then I had a huge break of it where I was just like, I'm not really that invested in it, I'll wait for everything else to come out. Went back, I think we both finished it maybe late last year or like January maybe.
I think it was
first week of January. We were definitely off over that Christmas period, and that's where we both finished it. And after finishing episode 3, I was like, all right, episode 4, but okay, I need to play episode 5. I need to see what's going on.
I just got addicted to it when I wasn't at work or sleeping. I was playing Life is Strange and like thinking about the characters, and
because you did the same thing, didn't you? You played the first 2 episodes and then had a bit
of I played like the first 1.5, and then I don't know, something else came up, and just kind of like, I knew that I enjoyed it and I knew that I wanted to go back to it eventually, but it was just kind of, it wasn't on like the top of my list. And then I went back to it just because I had really hot, so I didn't want to go outside and do anything, so it's like, well, I have this sitting in my thing, I enjoyed it, it was fine. And then like 10-15 minutes into playing it again, I was hooked, and I was like, I'm such an idiot, I could have played this ages ago.
Again though, I'm really pleased I didn't. I think it's a game that needs to be experienced as not as one sitting, but as one playthrough. Like, don't go away from it. The game, I was watching a conversation with the developers, and they intended for it to be episodic, so they could have the climaxes and then the lows and it works as an episodic thing. Yeah,
it just needs to be like Netflix episodes.
Yeah. Here is everything. Play each episode as you want. Which I guess the physical release, there's now a physical version on Xbox One and PS4, you can buy like a little collector's edition.
It looks nice. You get like an art book, and the art's gorgeous. So
yeah, so if people haven't played it, for God's sake, play it. Like it is an absolutely brilliant story.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of it's everything else. While it's good, you can go, yeah, the game handles quite well.
Yeah.
It doesn't look the greatest. Like it uses its art style well.
Yeah.
But I feel when you're creating a game, as you said, not just cross-platform but cross-generation. And did this come to iOS like some of Telltale's games did, or
not sure?
Did it not? Like,
I don't think so.
But that's what you can tell. There's limitations. It gets a bit janky in places. The rewind mechanic's brilliant. Like in terms of the actual mechanics they put in, you think, oh, this could get boring really quickly.
I did think that actually when I first started. I was like, well, rewind time. What can I really do with this?
Yeah.
Like it just seems like it's been chucked in to a story, about this mystery, but that was originally like just a straight non-supernatural thing.
Yeah.
And then after a bit of like experimenting with it and playing around with it, I got really into it. I was like, yeah,
I see
why this is important.
Because all I thought for the first episode and a half, first two episodes of that was it was to prevent insta-fail. Do you know what I mean? So it's to prevent you from making a wrong decision, or if you make that decision and then something happens and you think, that's not how I intended this to happen, you can go back and change it so that your path is the one that you actually want to make happen. So I thought it was a bit of a cop-out in the sense of your decisions didn't carry the same weight as they should carry. Because if your decision carried that weight, you'd just be left to deal with the consequence of the decision you've made, which at certain points in the narrative, that does happen. You can't use your power. And, she gets the nosebleeds and it's like, I can't use it right now, and look what happens. Because that happened to me at the end of episode 2 with Kate jumping off the building. That can be prevented.
I prevented it.
I didn't prevent it. She
comes back
off.
into it in the later episodes, and she helps you out big time.
Yeah. So all I got from that was, I think her parents start sending you things like saying like, thank you for trying to help our daughter, and it's like you just there going, didn't really help, did I? Because I could have prevented her. And Max kind of, for me, went on the rest of the story knowing that she could have prevented that, which is what made me super cautious in defending Chloe. I was gonna shoot Frank. I was gonna make sure that nothing bad was happening to her, and that's why I couldn't kill her in the end. Because although she tells you she's ready to go, look, this whole thing's happening. Yeah, it's like, I'm not ready to let you go. I don't care. This isn't a decision you get to make. It's a decision that we get to make.
Yeah.
Even though Max ultimately holds the trump card of being able to change the outcome irrespective. Episode 5, just go in. We'll touch on that a little bit, where Max is sort of thinks she's figured everything out.
Yeah.
She's going and having her little photo on display in was it in San Francisco?
I think so. Yeah.
And that was quite nice. You think she's getting.
It was nice to get a bit of breathing room,
which
and
you
everything,
need to come there.
Yeah, and it's kind of a reward because, obviously Max is trying to be a photographer. She's at art school, and this is her big thing. But since you can actually find things to take pictures of in the game, it kind of feels like we got here. This is our reward for saving the town and finding the murderer and doing school. And then it's a nice little breather before you get thrown back into it.
Yeah, and then that final sort of segment, as all hell is breaking loose, the supernatural things kick in. I wasn't overly convinced that was the best way to go about it, the supernatural tornadoes and stuff. I mean, I know it plays into the whole narrative of it's been going on since episode 1 with the lighthouse and all that kind of stuff. But what I really, really appreciated when all that settled down was the sort of walking through Max's choices as Max, and you get to walk through all of the decisions you've made. That it was just a real way of going. I've influenced this story. I've made all of these decisions, coming through to the end. I didn't like the little light puzzle in that. Where the Jeffersons walking around with the torches. That just felt too long.
Kind of dragged on, and it kind of pulled me out of.
It broke up that, and we're going through all this because it's like, oh, now there's a little mini game. I don't think that needed to.
Although it did make me kind of anxious to get through it, and I think it would have been scary as hell for Max. So I think it worked well in that it sort of aligned your mental state with hers. But I could have done without it.
Yeah. So I don't think there's any other things that we did differently other than the death of Kate. The big decisions. I think we've played it through pretty much exactly the same. As I said, Dan did save the town, and we now don't like Dan because he has no regard for our beloved Chloe.
I understand why Dan chose the town and stuff like that, and I'm not sure where you fit into this explanation, but I think for me and for a lot of other young girls who play it, I think it probably turned into a bit of a different story with me, and the focus was put more onto Max and Chloe because, you know, their friendship was so realistic, and it was like, yeah, well, like I recognize these feelings and like these events that are happening and things as like things that I've gone through with my own best friends. And, you know, like I would do like a lot of questionable
Sketchy
things
stuff,
to keep my friends alive and keep them happy and stuff. So especially setting it in like late high school when everything's kind of like crazy, I think that definitely tapped into like, I recognize this and I want to do the best I can.
Yeah, everybody's a bit messed up around then, and it's sort of having each other's back kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is why I think I really do sit on the fence, just sort of skating to the end of the story now. It's finished. For both of us, Max and Chloe drove off. They've got out of the town. That was the thing they kept saying they were going to do for the whole thing. Like, let's just get the fuck out of this town. Like, it's not good for either of us. They go off into the sunset. The town's destroyed. Who cares? But playing on from there, like in a continuation, part of me really wants them, as I said a little earlier, to be a part of the next season. But part of me also realises why now you've ostensibly fixed the scenario, and Max is going to come to terms with she's going to have to continue protecting Chloe because, you know, death is coming for her. It seems. How many times do you prevent her death? But going forward and doing that, how could you make another game out of it? I think it could get quite tiresome. You get into the end of this chapter and now you need to save Chloe again. Like, you can't really have them in it.
Yeah.
But just doing something like, as you said, that sort of high school is the end of high school. It's art school, art college, so maybe it's kind of university-esque.
I'm not exactly sure. What.
So how would it work going into sort of adulthood? I don't think it'd really work in terms of a narrative.
Yeah.
What kind of a power would you like to see in a
I don't know. Maybe like invisibility or something.
That could be quite cool.
Or like kind of reading people, manipulating people. Maybe could get kind of dark and
they could use, if it can be implemented as easily and effectively as just holding the left bumper or whatever your PC command was to rewind time. It was so intuitive. I don't think it's you don't need to complicate it. And as we were sort of talking about, the art style that leads into this was good. The mechanics were good. It still all comes back full circle to that story. The writers deserve an immense amount of credit for not only the story that they've created, but the way that they've made us care about characters. And I think, as you posed the question right at the start, what is it about this that has stuck with us for so long? And for me, it is the story. Very few stories do captivate me like that, where I don't stop thinking about them. Or if it's in a movie, I'll go back and I'll watch it, and I'll watch it again and again and again to understand all these little things that I missed. I did go back and play episode 2 again to try and save Kate. Still failed, so I gave up. I just couldn't get that narrative thread to work the way I wanted to. I do want to go back to episode 5 and change my final decision just to see how
I watched
out.
it on YouTube.
I was going to do the same thing, but then I thought, do you know what? No, actually, I think I'd like to go back, just load up a save before the last save, and just sort of watch it play out a little differently. But I'm happy with my decisions. I'm happy with the games, and I think the industry needs more little games like this.
I think so.
So many episodic games are now. Like we've spoke before about the Borderlands, Tales from the Borderlands. It's good. It's not that good.
Yeah, but I went back to Tales of the Borderlands after finishing Life is Strange because I was hooked on the episodic choose your own adventure ones. I was like,
I need another one of these.
And it was kind of boring. The narrative didn't seem to matter as much. So I think Life is Strange has kind of ruined me for games like this. So that's why I really want season 2 to be good.
We just need Life is Strange. Well, we're both massive fans of The Wolf Among Us as well. That should be coming any time. If you look at the Telltale's, when they said, Wolf Among Us season 2 is coming, and it was labelled as 2016, so we get that this year.
It's exciting.
But I just don't want that to then not live up to both season 1 of The Wolf Among Us and Life is Strange, because those are the two strongest they've made me feel about things, and in two completely opposite ways. That's what I want to come from it. Season 2, I don't know if it's been officially confirmed. They've said that they're thinking about it, or that they're working on concepts for season 2.
I think it's been confirmed.
I couldn't remember what Doubtnod said, but I know that they've obviously gone, this was a success, and Square Enix have gone, this was a success. How quick can you pump out sort of another one? But I want them to take their time with it. Episode 5 came out right at the end of last year, so they kind of wrapped it up in 2015. They've had their physical launch early 2016. this time next year, season 2, episode 1, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah,
would you?
that's enough time. You don't have to wait too long, but I'd be pretty confident that they've been given the time that they need to. Because I mean, I want more Life is Strange like right now, but I don't want it if it's going to be shitty. Cause
well, the thing that they've got at their advantage is the engine's made. The majority of the assets are made.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing they're going to have to really change would be characters. They'd have to have new character models. If they're keeping it in a similar kind of themed location, I'd imagine a lot of the art, the sort of scenic art could be used again.
Yeah.
What kind of age group would you want it? Do you want more, again, like high school, college kind of?
Yeah, or maybe kind of, I think the high school, college, or like kind of the age I am now, like kind of like early 20s, the age we both are now. I think that could be good, and it could be like kind of a little bit more of a adulty story, mature.
Focus with a bit deeper issues rather than sort of the high school kind of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. Well, we'll wrap with that. We want to talk about more Life is Strange, but...
I could talk about it all day, but I got stuff to do.
Exactly. And as I said, we both enjoyed it. Dan played it very differently to how we did. It's a shame that we couldn't have a little bit of input to sort of see someone else's take on it, but we both fully enjoyed it. If you haven't played it, go play it.
Definitely play it. You won't regret it.
Keep your fingers crossed that season 2 rolls around sooner rather than later. And no doubt we'll cover that when it comes to it. Thank you for coming and talking about Life is Strange.
Thank you for the bacon and egg roll you made me before we started this.
You are very welcome. Ciao, guys.